Alright, Trial Mob, if you remember, I told you guys we were going to be having a prototype that was going to come out soon, and here we have that prototype actually painted, looking incredible. This is definitely one for the books, boys, and we're going to talk about it today. We're going to look at a few of the photos of what we have so we can get some in-depth stuff. So let's go ahead and break it down. So here we have it, boys. This is the Sorrow Expeditionary Force 9th Army of the White Iron Cavalry. Well, that is an absolute mouthful, but this is a really good looking figure. I showed a few prototype photos before, and man, I knew this was going to look good once it got painted. So let's take a look at that. So as you guys recall, this was the original photos. As you can tell, there's been some slight differences overall on the arms, more so the arms, a little bit in the chest. We're going to go ahead and take an actual look at it, but I wanted to make sure you guys remembered what this originally stemmed from. And as you can tell, he is a big boy. Now, I do remember that we talked about this before, that some of Joytoy stuff tends to be a little bit bigger when it is in its prototype form, but I don't believe that to be the case. As you can see here, the final product seems to be about the same size as it was in the photo prior, so it's still pretty large. Maybe it's slightly smaller. It's really hard to tell, but as you can tell, it's still a large figure. I really appreciate the fact that we're getting what honestly should have been a Primaris Space Marine size to begin with. I know I mentioned that in the prototype, but here we're finally getting something that is the proper size. Now, that doesn't mean it's a perfect figure, and I'm going to get into that in a second, but I love what I'm seeing here. Just again, the color, the size. I cannot wait to see what this guy is going to look like next to other people from the same Iron Cavalry unit that he's from. Now, another thing that they didn't change was the fact that he does come with a basically a hatch for the head, and that pops open to show the actual head of the person right here. So again, they didn't change too much here. It's still an awesome look. As you can tell, there's a bit more in the chest, but again, we're going to go over those photos right now. So as you can tell right here, it has a beautiful neutral pose just up and down. There is not one panel that wasn't given the amount of detail it deserved. Of course, this is supposed to be the White Iron Cavalry, so the main wash is going to be white throughout the body. But as you can tell, there's a lot of lines, a lot of red. Well, I shouldn't say a lot, but red in the right places. Gunmetal gray for some of the underbody bits. This looks a lot like one of their larger mechs, but they took basically key points from the design of that and put it together in a smaller yet still bulky package that, again, I would love to see many different iterations of this. I'd probably buy each and every single one of them. Now, Joytoy is no slouch, so on the back end we still get a lot going on here. As you can tell from some of the earlier photos that we did get with the prototype, here we actually get to see that they added a little bit of bulk to it. It's filled out a little bit more, and as you can tell, paint, gunmetal, white, browns, just all the way through the back. So again, Joytoy never skims front or back. Now, accessory wise, the only real thing he comes with is the gun that is on the right arm, though it doesn't take up the hand itself. It's a lot like some of the Primaris stuff we've seen where they have the kind of gauntlet that comes off on the side. So that's really cool. And then he has basically Cloud's Buster Sword, because that thing is huge. It spans, as you can tell, this is one of the biggest figures I've ever made before. And from the tip of the sword basically all the way down to the tip of the hilt, it runs the same height of the figure itself. So this is a gigantic sword. I'm sure it's going to be, I mean, they have to have the joints tight on this to be able to hold that sword, unless it's very, very lightweight, which I am hoping it is. Now here we do get a nice clean shot of the unhelmeted head. I really appreciate that. This does look a lot like a figure that could have easily have just been the head itself, but the fact that they're going the extra mile here to give it a hatch right at this size, they're able to do that. And below we have a human. Now the reality is there's no, from what I can tell, actual human Joytoy body in there. It's not like the chest opens up and you can put another figure in there. That is just simply the size of that's just the head. That's all we get. So potentially in the future there might be interchangeable heads, but as far as I can tell from what I'm seeing here, that is bigger than your normal Joytoy head. So I don't think it's going to be interchangeable with things that you might already have currently. Now, when it comes to big, bulky figures, it's not like Joytoy hasn't been able to do a few of those with a lot of the Space Marine stuff that we've gotten. And articulation doesn't seem to be that much of an issue for those figures. Here, I am seeing a few points of contention, but at least, as you can tell, you can get him in a full kneeling pose. So that's really nice, the fact that there's really no problem there. It makes him look very regal, very knight-like, the fact that you can put him in this position. I do like what we're seeing here. I like the symmetry. I like the fact that he looks as badass as he does in this specific photo. So there's a lot to like here, but I'll get into the negative in a second. So due to the general size of this figure in terms of its chest, I imagine the shoulders don't have as much range as you would hope for, and I wouldn't be surprised if both arms just kind of come out in front of him, but he's not probably able to touch very well left hand or right hand. Every single time they show this guy holding the sword, he's not able to hold it with both hands, so you're not going to be able to get cross left to right articulation, which kind of sucks. I really wish that this had hinged shoulders so you can kind of bring those arms forward. Maybe it does, but none of the photos seem to suggest that. Everything he does is basically one-handed with the left to right arm, so I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense, but because it's most likely more of a robotic body, I kind of wish that they would have done something like that. So Joytoy, if you are listening and you haven't done that specifically with this figure, I am hoping in the future that you are able to do something like that. Now, just because you don't get the full articulation in the arms doesn't mean you still can't pose him up really nicely. Again, he looks very knight-like, very regal. This is something I'm going to buy for sure. I know I say that fairly often, and then you guys never see the reviews of some of them, but this is definitely one I need in my arsenal. And again, we'll have to see if they do any follow-ups, any other kinds of figures. Maybe we'll get one with an axe, and we'll get one in a different color. And of course, just to see what other things are going to be released that might go with this, which we'll see here in a second that we do got a Mech coming, but again, this is a new size of figure, and if they sell well, if they get reviewed well, we might see this across all the other mechs that we've gotten so far, all the other, cavalry units, all the other names and factions that Joytoy has. So as noted earlier, the only real thing that comes with him is the sword, and as you can tell, about 4 other hands that basically are action pose hands. So it's a fairly nice package, and I do like the fact that he doesn't come with a bunch of pieces that come off of him like the Hurricane models that we got before. That was a terrible figure. I don't know how many times I'm going to have to repeat that, but Joytoy, never do a figure like that again. Do it more like this. I think this is the perfect way to do it. There's still room for improvement, but I think overall the package is going to be really nice with this one. Now, in keeping with the Sorrow Expeditionary Forces, we're going to have the Tyrant Mecha 01. So again, this is still part of the same Sorrow Expeditionary Forces. I don't know if this is necessarily the Iron Cavalry portion, but still, as you can tell, a lot of the same cues, a sort of whitewash all throughout, some red accenting, a new figure that we haven't gotten before. And there's something cool about that guy. I don't know if you can tell, but let's get into it. So as you can tell, plenty of detail on both of them front and back. We do get, as I mentioned before, somewhat of the same look that we got with the other figure that we were just looking at right here. If you look at that one, he had jetpacks on the back, again, bulkier. And here we have the Mecha, same thing, jetpacks on the back. So there's definitely some similarities that we're getting throughout it. I love uniformity like that, so I appreciate that we're seeing it on both the smaller buck and the huge Mecha. Now, going along in tandem with what we've gotten before, we basically have a really nice mech here, very broad-shouldered. I really appreciate that kind of bulkiness. A lot of satchels in the front, details all throughout, and something that we've recently come to see more from Joytoy is where their mechs seem to actually have a head, while some of the ones that we got before really had more of the same hatch that we saw in the first figure in this news video. And here, like you can tell, there's a little bit more of like a head going on at the top. So I do appreciate that look more. It looks more realistic, and to be honest, it's starting to make them slowly but surely start to look a little bit more like a cross between Titanfall Titans and Gundam. So not a bad look at all. Now, what is a mech without its pilot? And here we have the pilot himself, and I really like what we got going on here. I don't think we've ever seen this before, but if you look at that left arm, it's a robotic arm. So we haven't gotten that before. This is something that's, I think, a first time. That gun we've probably seen before, but the rest of the body, it looks a little bit more akin to some of the newer Joytoy figures that we've gotten. So I'd definitely love to see a little bit more of this guy. But again, something like this where you have a robotic arm like this definitely makes him unique compared to anything else we've gotten before. Alright, Trial Mob, so there you have it. We have some new Joytoy stuff that's coming in. It's some really cool stuff. I cannot wait to have this in hand. But if you like this video and you want to see more, which I have plenty more content coming on the way, I'm just trying to find the time to get it all together. But if you do want to see more, make sure you're liking, commenting, subscribing, hit the bell notification so that you know when I am posting new content. I have a few more big features coming along the way, so definitely tune in for that, as I'll be posting them up later this week. But until then, I'll catch you guys on the next feature. Deuces.